but it's an absolute pleasure to not only welcome to the Knicks, but to welcome to New York and the conversation, which almost happens on a daily basis, and that is Scott Perry, the new general manager of the New York Knicks, and he joins us here on the Michael Kay Show. It's Don LaGreca and Mike Greenberg. Congratulations on the job, and welcome to New York.
Thank you so much, Don, and thank you so much, Mike. I've got to admit, I'm a little humbled to be talking to Mike Greenberg on here, as I've been working out to the Mike and Mike show for 15 years, so I'm humbled to be talking to you, Mike.
Well, it's very nice of you to say thank you very much. Welcome. I'm a lifelong Knick fan. I grew up sitting in those seats upstairs that don't exist anymore, so I think I speak for all Knick fans everywhere when I wish you the best of luck and get things started. And I'll start with the most general question and then work our way forward. I liked how you talked today. We watched and listened to your entire press conference, talked about building a culture, and any journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And you talked about not having statements written on placards or things like that, but actual concrete moves. So what is job one? You take over today. Tomorrow you walk into the office. What is the first step taken towards changing the culture into a winning one?
Well, I think the first thing that I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to sit over the next couple of days with each and every employee in this building, whether it's a scout, whether it's a coach, whether it's a maintenance person, whoever it is, we're going to sit and have some sort of conversation. So I want to learn their story. I want to learn about their role. I want to, learn, get their feelings about what it's been like to work here, so I can start really formulating and let them get to know a little bit more about me and figure out how we can put this thing all together so we can all march together, like I said earlier in the press conference, daily in terms of living a culture instead of just stating a culture.
Scott, as you march together, does the direction change at all depending on whether Carmelo Anthony is here or not?
Look, in terms of Carmelo, again, we're going to continue to talk with his representatives and to address it clearly. Look, if there's something there for Carmelo that makes sense, that's going to improve the Knicks, and it's obviously beneficial to him, then we would look at it. But there's a possibility that a trade like that may not come up, and Carmelo will be back. So I think either way, I'm adaptable, and I think we're going to be that way and flexible, and we're going to make it work however it turns out.
How soon could you sit down with him and whomever it is that would be representing him on that conversation?
I don't have an exact time. Obviously, now that I'm here officially, we're going to look to do that here. I'm sure, rather sooner rather than later. But we'll keep plugging away at that thing, and I'm looking forward to it. I do know him a little bit, so I'm just looking forward to having that dialogue continue, and just want to see where his head is at on things as well.
Now, you had mentioned that you don't want to dwell on the past, and nor should you. You've got a lot of work to do here in the present. But some of the ills of the past are things that become your problem. The relationship with Kristaps Porzingis, the relationship with Carmelo Anthony. Did you feel in the time you're being here, or do you anticipate that there will be work to be done to get everybody on the same page and to do a little work to solve some of the problems that existed before you got here?
Well, I think the big thing for me is just coming in and be the person I've been all my career. And, again, that's looking forward and being positive. So I'm very open. I think it would be a little bit unfair of me to really – I didn't live here prior to coming here, obviously. I was working in another organization. So now I'm part of the New York Knicks, and I think it's just going to be important that I establish myself along with Steve and the rest of our group that here's what we're going to be doing going forward. And if that includes having relationships with guys like Kristaps and Carmelo, we're going to do that.
Mike and my goodness, I can't believe I just said that.
That's all right.
The Michael Kay Show. This will happen a bunch of times, I guess, here, as I wanted to reset and mention that we're talking to the new Knicks general manager, Scott Perry, who is with us here. Scott, you mentioned Porzingis. He's a fascinating person, forgetting the personality at this point or whatever the issues were in the past. You're a basketball guy, and you've at least observed him from a distance. Break down Kristaps Porzingis, what he is right now and what you think he can be.
Well, first of all, I was fortunate enough to meet Kristaps during the draft process a couple years ago when he was coming out. So I got a feel for him as a young man. I really liked him. He was, I was very easy to talk to, and he was someone who aspires to be a good basketball player. Look, his talent kind of speaks for itself to me. I mean, he's long, he's athletic, he's kind of what today's game has gone to. A guy who can play a couple of different positions, who can shoot away from the goal, and I just think a lot of his best basketball is ahead of him, and he will be as good as he can become based on how hard he works going forward.
Scott, the other question that we have here is who is in charge? Because you're taking over for Steve Mills, who was the general manager last year when Phil Jackson, who was the president, was making all of the decisions. In New York, we like to, as fans and media, put a face on the transactions, put a face on the moves. So who is the face going forward of the decisions that the New York Knicks are going to make?
Well, I think how we're going to be set up is that, look, Steve is empowering me to really help shape this basketball operations department, and I'm going to have a number of different suggestions for him. He and I are going to work in this in concert, and we'll hash it out, but ultimately he will have the final say-so.
Fair enough. All right, Scott Perry, there's a more direct answer than perhaps we anticipated to that. So next year when they make a pick that we don't like, it's him we yell at and not you that we yell at.
No, but look, whatever decisions made, I'll be in agreement with him at the end of the day. We'll be together on it, so you can yell at me too.
And I noticed in the press conference you referred to young Frank, the young man who was drafted by the Knicks in the first. It suggests to me that, like Don and I, you can't say his last name either. But you said that you have seen him in person. So I know a lot of Knicks fans have not. Give us the scouting report on the first-round pick.
Well, again, obviously I was very familiar with him through the draft process that I was going through in Sacramento.
Right.
He's got good size and length. I think he's a young guy that his best basketball is ahead of him. It's going to, probably take him a little time to grow and develop. But he was, I think, universally, if you checked around boards across the NBA, he was a top 10 prospect, and a lot of it had to do with his upside, his length. I think he's solid, a very smart basketball player. But at that position, that point guard position, I've said this to anyone that's ever had to draft a young point guard. Matter of fact, I was just in Sacramento where we drafted De'Aaron Fox. That is the toughest position to play. It's like, you talk about an NFL quarterback, they have the biggest adjustment to make. Well, the point guard position in the NBA has that big adjustment. And so it takes a little time, and I think it's going to take a village to help raise him become the type of player that we think he can become one day.
Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot as would you have drafted him, would you have signed Hardaway Jr., but would this have been easier, or was there some sense of awkwardness that you took this job after the draft and that a major free agent had already been signed?
Well, there's no awkwardness, and by that I mean this. Look, in this industry, you never know when a job opportunity presents itself. And so my opportunity just happened to present itself, post-draft and post-early free agency. But as I stated in the press conference earlier today, I'm very familiar with Tim Hardaway Jr. Matter of fact, he was a name that we even talked about in Sacramento as we set out our free agency plans. I'm familiar with him as he played at University of Michigan, the place I used to coach. And at 25 years old, he had a terrific year this year. You got a guy that's entering his prime at a position that's going to be very important in this league right now because of guys who can shoot threes and score the basketball. So he fits that bill. So I was very comfortable with that and knowledgeable of the fact that he was going to be here. And so, and then the same thing as it relates to Frank in the draft. We talked a lot, in Sacramento, we had the 5th pick and the 10th pick. So Frank was a guy that we talked about a lot. We didn't think he would slide there, but he was someone that we were very interested in and liked a lot. So, I'm pleased to be working with both of those guys.
Scott Perry, the general manager of the Knicks, you were hired obviously not just because of your vision for the next few weeks, but the next few years. And so as you put in place a plan to build with young, developing players, it's no secret that next summer there are a lot of big NBA stars, superstars, if you will, that will be free agents. What is your overriding philosophy on building a team that way, on adding a superstar piece here or there? You've been in the Western Conference recently, where obviously everyone in the world is chasing Golden State. What should the Knicks fan expectation be relative to a chase for a major star player in free agency next year?
Well, I think for me, this first year is obviously going to be in our group to evaluate where this team is. We talked a lot today about a young core, and it'll be interesting for me to watch them to develop during the season to see exactly where we are. Knowing free agents like I do, they're going to be they're attracted to places that they think are ready to win and win right at that particular moment. So we're going to stay fluid with that. I'm a believer in trying to get the very best available players that we can get, but they have to fit our culture. And so I think we've got to be fluid along those lines based on how we're performing during the year, what opportunities present themselves in free agency for next year. So stay tuned.
I usually ask this question, and it kind of comes across as New York's better. I'm not saying New York is better. New York is different. It's a different animal than a lot of other places. The amount of fans, the amount of media, the amount of attention. So when you take a job here in New York, do you acknowledge that New York may be a little bit different and things have to be handled in more of a different way than they would be in Detroit or Orlando or Sacramento and the other places you've been?
Oh, there's no question about it. I think it would be naive of me to think that coming to New York City is just like any other city in the country. We're talking about the largest media market, not only in this country, but probably in the world. So you do take that into account. You figure that's going to be a little bit different in terms of what your relationship with the media is going to be like, the coverage of the team. But what I will say is going to be the same, at least for me, or how I'm going to try to approach it, though, is that the day-to-day work that I have to do as a general manager is going to be very similar. It's still, it's like in football. I'm a big football guy. I think you guys will learn that. But it's like blocking and tackling. We've got to do the fundamentals each and every day from a basketball perspective. So that includes the scouting, the development, the communication, all the things that go into making a successful basketball operations department. We're going to be committed to doing that on a daily basis, and I think if you stick to that and have the discipline and to sticking to your principles and in what you believe in, that over time you're going to create a sustainable winning product on the floor.